Hey everybody, it's Friday yet again, and time for our weekly routine. Hey Browen, no, don't do that. Yeah, I know, you're jealous. You want some attention. Well, come here then. Sorry folks, Mr. Browen just is being a fuss budget today. So, you can just sit up here with me while I do this. Okay, there we go. We settled in. So, our 3 shoutouts for this week. The first one is A-OK Foraging and Adventures. And it's a wonderful channel. I do camping, fishing, survival things, cooking, both inside the house and out in the camp. Cast Iron Wednesday is one of their things. So go by and give A-OK Foraging and Adventures some lovin', just like I'm giving Browen some lovin'. Alrighty, our second channel is Part-Time Detector. Lovely lady down in Florida who does metal detecting and vlogs about other things as well. So check Amy out and give her channel some support and love. So Part-Time Detector. And our third channel, but of course not least, is over in jolly old England. And Andy does the editing for his granddaughter's channel, Raven Girl. And she is quite successful. I think he's put more effort into her channel than he has his own. But Andy could use some loving, and so I encourage you to go over and give him some support. His channel is called Many Fun Adventures, or MFA. MFA. Many Fun Adventures. He does what I call docu-vlogs on some of the ruins and history around his area. And he also does some magnet fishing and flies a drone and does some beautiful aerial, I got a capper on my face now, beautiful aerial footage from the drone he flies. And yeah, just a fantastic channel. And I think he should have more support than he does. But go give Andy some support on MFA. So that's our 3. A-OK Foraging and Adventures, Part-Time Detector, and MFA Many Fun Adventures. All right, I'm going to do something different this week. I'm going to read you Chapter 1 of The Answers Man, which is a novelette that I wrote several years back. It was to be the first in a series called the Frank and Abby Mystery Series. The second book is partly written, but I haven't put a pen to paper on that one for probably 3 or 4 years. Got writer's block and lost interest, and probably need to get back to that at some point. But in the meantime, I'm busy writing Uncle Tad, so. But now, we're going to do something very democratic. I will read the full novelette, not in one video, so you can relax, because you don't want to be here for hours. But our choices are, I can do Chapter 1 this week, Chapter 2 next week, Chapter 3 the following week, or I can do a chapter a month. So it'd be today in March, second one towards the end of April, the third chapter towards the end of May, etc. So in the comments below, tell me your vote. Do you want week after week or once a month? And the majority rule. That's how democracy works, right? Well, that's how it's supposed to work. Although it seems lately it's the minority seems to get their way more than the majority. But anyway, now I'm waxing eloquent and getting on my soapbox about politics, and that's not where we're supposed to be. So, and then following that, we'll have our Groaner of the week. But let's get started on The Answers Man, a Frank and Abby mystery. One of the truths of our modern society is that you cannot live a normal life without money. Money must be earned via some endeavor, legal or otherwise. I made a good living for many years in the corporate world as a troubleshooter, until due to corporate downsizing, my position was made, quote-unquote, redundant. Left with a year's severance pay and a healthy bank account, I decided to start my own business. I've always liked solving puzzles and resolving problems, so I opted to try my hand at doing exactly that for other people. I know it sounds a bit like a detective agency, but you have to be licensed to be a private investigator. No such license is required for finding answers and problem solving, so here I am making a modest income by finding answers for a fee. I set up shop in the small town of Ryerville, population 2,500, not far from the major urban center known to one and all as Lauder City. I opted for a small town for several reasons. First, due to the lower cost of real estate, I was able to buy a building outright, thereby eliminating mortgage payments and keeping my overhead low. Secondly, my office is very easy to find. Once you find Ryerville, it's in the small downtown business district. Thirdly, my clients, at least those from out of town, do not have to worry about their friends, family members, neighbors, or business associates seeing them entering the premises and thereby jeopardizing their privacy. The fourth and final reason is that when I'm not working on a case, seeking an answer, I can enjoy sitting in the local coffee shop and learning all about the current trends in farming and agriculture. I say this tongue-in-cheek. Having used the weekend to get settled into the 2-bedroom apartment on the second floor of the 2-story red brick building that was once one of the town's banks, the first thing Monday morning I began setting up my office on the main floor. I had spent some time in Lauder City the previous week visiting second-hand stores and had managed to assemble a fairly functional, if somewhat mismatched, suite of office furniture. The front of the old bank space I furnished with a sofa, some easy chairs, a coffee table, credenza, and an area rug. Where the teller's counter had once been, I could tell by the marks on the floor, I placed a solid, well-used oak teacher's desk with a comfy but slightly worn office chair. This was to serve as a secretary/receptionist desk for when I hit the big time. Hey, a guy has to think positive. The small area in front of the walk-in vault I turned into a staff lunch/coffee room complete with table and chairs, small fridge, and most importantly, a coffee maker. The walk-in vault I had yet to think of a use for, but at the very least it could serve as a storage room. In what had once been the bank manager's office, I set up my used executive's desk, a computer hutch, 2 client chairs, 3 bookcases, and 4 filing cabinets. The latter were very empty. The piece de resistance was the brand new plush leather high-backed executive's chair to which I had treated myself. I was on my hands and knees in the knee hole of the computer hutch, trying to connect a mass of cables to their appropriate ports, when I thought I heard a voice. It was a soft, gentle sound, not much above a whisper, but definitely a voice. I backed out of the knee hole, turned, and peered over the top of my executive desk. I expected to see someone standing there, but being on my knees, I truly did not expect to be almost at eye level with them. Standing demurely between the clients' chairs was a very attractive, very petite young lady with the bluest eyes I'd ever seen. Hi, Betty. She was much taller. She was much taller than 5. Boy, I'm bumbling all over the place. If she was much taller than 5 feet, I'd be surprised. Suddenly, realizing I was staring and being a bit rude, I stood up and introduced myself. Hello, I'm Frank Harvey. Welcome to Harvey's Answer Agency. Please have a seat, miss, and tell me how I may be of assistance. Leaning across the desk, she proffered her right hand and introduced herself. I'm Abigail Barstow, she said, and I'm not here for your company's help. I'm here to offer my assistance to you. Having received a handshake and a raised eyebrow from me, she settled herself into one of the client's chairs and looked at me expectantly. Abigail, I'm a bit confused, I said as I pulled my desk chair over and sank into it. I was not aware that I needed assistance. If you're selling advertising or promotional material, I really can't afford it right now, perhaps sometimes down the road, but not right now. Oh, please call me Abby. Only my mother calls me Abigail, and then only if she's upset with me. I'm here to offer you my services as a secretary and receptionist. I have 8 years of experience. For the last 5 years, I was personal secretary to the chief of police in Lauder City. I had to resign my position and move back home to Ryerville after my mother's car accident. She broke her hip and had to have hip replacement surgery. Until she has recovered fully, she needs help with things around the house. Well, Abby, I'm flattered, I really am, but I'm afraid I cannot offer you a job at the moment. You see, I'm just starting out in this business, and I really can't afford an employee at this time. If I'm going to make it, I need to keep my overhead and my expenses to a minimum, I said with regret in my voice. "Oh, I'm willing to work for free," Abby smiled at me. "You see, while Mom needs me to make sure she takes her medications, eats right, and to do the heavy lifting, so to speak, she does not require me to be there all the time. So you see, I'm bored out of my mind and need something to do. As I see it, it's a win-win situation. You get office help, and I get to get out of the house before Mom drives me crazy." Well, how can a guy say no to such an offer? I leaned back in my chair and tried to come up with reasons to reject her proposition. I will be darned if I could think of even one, but then, to be honest, I really wasn't trying very hard. "All right, you have a deal. I don't know how much work we will have, so it may well be more boring for you here than it is at home. You might want to bring a good book to work with you. But if you're willing, we'll give it a try. Hopefully down the road I'll get to a point that I'll be able to pay you a wage. Until then, if business is good, I'll share some of the profit with you. All right?" "It's a done deal," she said, and offered me her hand again to seal our agreement. "So what exactly do you do here?" "Well, the idea is to help individuals and companies find answers to difficult questions and problems," I explained. "The trick is in discerning which jobs I actually stand a good chance of finding an answer to. Otherwise, I might quickly be out of business." "So what you're saying is if someone comes in asking you to prove the existence of Bigfoot, let's say, you would decline the case because the chances of succeeding are really thin," she stated rather than asked. "That's right," I replied. "There will always be questions to which only God knows the answer, and not being him, I won't even begin to waste time looking into them. An example of what I might do is research a potential product name to ensure that it isn't already being used, and also to make sure it doesn't have negative connotations in some foreign language. I might also take some quasi-detective type cases, but as I'm not a licensed private investigator, I will have to tread lightly in that area. Are you still interested in working here? It might get pretty boring at times, even when we're working, as I don't know how much secretarial work there will be. I can only clean house, watch soap operas, read books, and listen to Mum's philosophy of life for so long. Plus, I think what you plan to do sounds very interesting. You're like a detective who solves problems rather than crimes," Abby said. "In a way, you're right, but please don't use the word detective, as it could get me into trouble with the authorities. In this state, private detectives and their agencies have to be licensed," I told her. "Come with me and I'll give you the grand tour of the facilities." I took Abby back to the front reception area and showed her the desk she would use. Then, having been informed by her that the local drugstore also carried stationery supplies, I gave Abby some cash to purchase whatever she thought we would need. She sat down at her desk and did an inventory of what I had and wrote up a list of what we needed. I was impressed by her efficiency and thoroughness. Armed with her list of needs, she set off to purchase what we required. We spent the next 3 days reorganizing the office to suit Abby. Well, she was working for nothing, so how could I say no? In the end, I had to admit that the way she suggested we arrange the front office and reception area was far more practical than my attempt. We placed her desk in such a way that she could greet people as they entered. We moved the waiting room back to where Abby's desk had been, thus covering the marks on the floor from the old teller's counter with the area rug. The end result was that we had a much more professional-looking and functional front office. The bonus for Abby was that from her desk she could now watch the comings and goings on Main Street. Another change she suggested, and I had to agree it was a good one, was to use the old vault as a file room. By moving the 4 filing cabinets out of my office and into the vault, I suddenly had a much more spacious office. And as Abby pointed out, I would be protecting any files we might have from fire, etc. On Thursday morning, my alarm clock failed to go off, allowing me to sleep well past my usual 6 a.m. rising time. When I did awake, it was to the sounds of a gathering of people downstairs. When the reality of what I was hearing made its way through my sleep-fogged mind, I jumped out of bed and headed for the stairs. I was halfway down the staircase before it dawned on me that having a bleary-eyed, tousle-haired man in his PJs stumble into the midst of whatever was happening down there in my offices might not be the best way to impress a potential client. I turned and headed back to my bedroom so I could at least throw on some clothes. Once suitably attired, hair quickly combed to a quick rinse of mouthwash, I made my way back down the stairs to the office. I walked into a hive of activity. Once I got over the shock of what I was seeing, the large crowd my brain first perceived turned out to be only 6 people. Abby finally noticed me standing there gawking and made her way to where I was standing. "What on earth is going on here?" I asked. "Oh, just some neighborly welcome to town, how can we help renovations," Abby replied with a sheepish grin. "So what do you think?" Honestly, I didn't know what to think. There were 2 ladies busy painting the walls a bright beige, 2 men doing something with the wiring, and a 3rd man at the front plate glass window painting letters on it. Abby, I repeat, what's going on here? I can't afford all this work." Abby shook her head and said, "You have never lived in a small town before, have you?" "No, I haven't, but what does that have to do with all this?" I asked, making a sweeping gesture with my arm. "Well, you see, Betty and Marge," she indicated the painters, "are sisters who used to work here in the bank as tellers. Betty's husband, George, the one on the ladder, and their son are farmers, but George is also a journeyman electrician. Wally, the guy painting the window sign, teaches art at the community college in Lauder City. Would you like a cup of coffee?" Abby smiled up at me as if what she had just said should answer all my questions. Yes, Abby, a coffee would be great, but you haven't answered my question." Abby laughed lightly and said, "No, I guess I really haven't." Then she suddenly yelled, "Hey everybody, come meet Frank." And I was quickly surrounded and introductions were made. "I'm very pleased to meet all of you, but I'm afraid there has been some misunderstanding. What you are all doing undoubtedly needs to be done, but I really cannot afford it right now." I took the mug of hot coffee Abby held out to me, then cringed as everyone started talking at once. I held up a hand finally as the babble of voice ceased. Betty looked at the others as if for approval, then explained the goings-on. "You see, Mr. Frank, Marg and I have a real soft spot for this old building. When the bank closed its doors 8 years ago, we were afraid the building would just sit here and molder away. Our grandfather, we're cousins, built this building and started the bank here. So when you bought it, we were overjoyed. I just repainted my living room, hallway, and kitchen and had lots of paint left over. Marg and her husband also had a bunch of leftover paint, so we combined it all with the addition of a gallon of white and came up with this lovely sand color. So sprucing up the place is our family's way of saying welcome to the community and thanks for saving a part of our family's history. George told me that there was no point painting the place when some of the wiring in here was so poor it would likely burn the place down. So I told him he'd better fix it or he could darn well sleep in the barn." I glanced at George and received a sheepish grin in return. "Well, thank you so much. I'm really not sure what to say. It's certainly very kind of all of you to do this," I stated. "If I can ever do anything in return, just let me know." "I've always wanted to try my hand at sign painting," Wally piped up. "So when Abby told me about your business and you giving her a job, I figured painting your business's name on the window would be a good way to say welcome. I hope the colors I've chosen are okay. I'm not using anything outlandish because this town is pretty conservative. Do you have a company logo you want me to add?" No company logo. I'm not that creative and the colors look fine." "Wow, I just don't know what to say. It's all a bit overwhelming." I thanked them again. "Would you allow me to at least treat all of you to breakfast at the cafe?" "Well, I'm all for that," declared Betty's and George's son. This earned him a jab in the ribs and a glare from his dad. "That would be nice indeed," Wally said, "but it will have to be another time. I need to get back to that window before the sun starts shining on it and makes the paint dry too fast." "Well then, let's all meet at the cafe tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Will that work?" Everyone agreed 8 a.m. tomorrow would be fine, and with that, everyone returned to their work, leaving me standing there with a cup of coffee in my hand and a warm glow in my heart, and feeling a bit useless. I looked around once more at all that was going on, then headed upstairs to shower, shave, and dress properly. Once back in the office, I took time to assess what I needed to do in the next few days to try and attract business. Friday morning, we all met at the cafe as agreed and enjoyed a good old-fashioned breakfast together. Then Abby and I said our goodbyes to the others and headed to the office. George said he and Bobby, the son, would be by later in the afternoon to finish up the wiring. I was glad to hear this bit of information, for as I had arranged, the phone company was due to hook up the landline and internet services on Monday. Once that was done, I'd have a fully functional office and hopefully be able to start generating some income. While I worked at organizing my office, unpacking books, and placing items dear to my heart around the office, Abby sat at her desk and read a book. There was really nothing else for her to do. Given the amount I was paying her, there was no reason for me to complain. I was proud of how the place had turned out. Everything, thanks to Betty and Marg's paint, looked and smelled clean and fresh. The well-used but good quality office furniture gave us the appearance of being a well-established business. Wally's fantastic job of window sign painting announced to one and all that this was the home of Harvey's Answer Agency. All I needed now was some clientele, and life, as they say, would be good. It took another week before the office was fully functional. The telephone company didn't show up until Tuesday. Sam, an IT friend from my old job, drove out from Lauder City on Wednesday and got our computers. I had to buy one for Abby, networked and operational. He then kindly took the time to set up a web page, email account, and Facebook account for us, and taught Abby how to manage and maintain them all. I spent my time trying to think of catchy ways to cheaply advertise my services and attract business. I can honestly say the Madison Avenue crowd had nothing to worry about on my account. In the end, I drafted letters to company that I thought might be able to use our services and put Abby to work typing them up and mailing them. By Friday, Abby and I were both comfortably ensconced at our desks reading books. Business was definitely not booming, and I feared Abby might start thinking that having her mom drive her nuts might be less boring than being here. That, however, was about to change. And that's the end of chapter 1. So, hope you enjoyed that. If you didn't, if you don't like it and you don't want me to carry on, just say down in the comments, just in capital letters, but stop! And we'll go back to doing some other things. But don't forget to let me know if you want a chapter a month or a chapter a week until we finish the book. Alrighty, now it's time for our Groaner. Okay, well, Barber was busy going about his normal business, which is shaving faces and cutting hair, when into the shop walked a man and a young boy. And the man said to the young boy, "You go sit over there while I get my hair cut, and then once I'm done, you can get your hair cut, and we'll be all ready for church tomorrow." So the little boy went and sat down and picked up a magazine, started leafing through it. The man got in the chair, and the barber cut his hair, and they chit-chatted about politics and goings on and, the normal kind of things. And when the gentleman was finished, the barber whisked the cover off him, and the man got out of the chair and he said, "Okay, son, you get in the chair and get your hair cut. I'm going to go next door and buy a new tie for church. My other ties are getting pretty worn." So he says, "I'll be back as soon as I get the tie. And, I'll pay for the haircuts then." And out the door he goes, and so the little boy looks at the barber, and the barber takes a board he has and sits across the arm of the chairs and helps the boy climb up, and puts the paper around his neck, puts the cape on, and starts doing the haircut. The boy's hair isn't that long, so it doesn't take him long. It's more of a trim than a haircut. And once he's done, he looks, and the dad's not back, and he says, "Well, you better go sit in the chairs over there and wait." And so the boy goes and sits, picks up the magazine he'd been looking at, and carries on. And the barber continues cutting hair with new customers, and about 45 minutes to an hour goes by, and the gentleman hasn't returned. So finally there's a lull, and the barber looks over at the little boy sitting there reading a magazine, and he says, "Son, did your father forget you?" And the little boy looks up at him and says, "Oh, he's not my father." "Not your father? Well, who is he?" I have no idea. He says, I was walking down the street and he grabbed my hand and said, come on, son, let's go get a haircut. There you go. There's your Groaner of the week. That was told to me by a friend named Ray, who happens to be a retired barber. Hope you enjoyed today's video. If you didn't, like I say, let me know in the comments. I don't want to carry on reading the adventures of Frank and Abby here to you if you found it boring or uninteresting. If you are enjoying it, then let me know. Do I do chapter 2 next week, or do I wait till the end of April to do chapter 2? All right. Well, have a wonderful weekend. May God bless you. Keep yourself out of mischief. Take care. Stay safe. And we'll see you Tuesday.